it going, everyone? Welcome to Shetland summer. As you can see, it is not that nice. This is pretty much all I'm getting at the minute. Me and Meg are going to have a cook up. That's the sea over there. You can't even see it because the fog's rolled in. It's misty as hell, but it's Shetland and it's summer, so I'm gonna have a barbecue nevertheless. And what I'm gonna do is cook up some of the goose that I shot over the winter. And I'm gonna do some recipes, well, kind of making up my own recipes, but it's influenced by the Saltbox UK, so shout out to them. They've sent me up a whole load of spices, which I'm using in this video. Mix and match. I've also used a few of their things like their flatbread recipes and bits and pieces, and I've also made chimichurri, which is a nice saucy seasoning, something to go over the top. I don't know what you call it, almost like a sauce or marinade. I think it's, I'm not too sure where it's from, pretty uneducated in that, or I just can't remember. But basically I'm going to crack this bad boy open. This is my, well, barrel smoker. It doesn't contain any oil at this moment in time, but it does taste pretty good when food is cooked in it. It's 2 oil drums basically I've shoved together, all the way at the bottom as well. So I'm going to get stuck in to getting the fire going. I'm going to have a cook up on that. So stay tuned. We've got a goose recipe, and I'll flick some footage of how we got the geese in the first place. So yeah, let's do it. Thanks to a quick Google search, chimichurri is Latin American and
Argentinian and Brazilian.
Oh yeah, and Argentinian Brazilian. Thank you, Google. I did have that in my head and I just didn't know how to get it out in words. Anyway, let's carry on. Here in Shetland, hunting geese usually means starting first thing in the morning or heading out in the evening. So you start in the dark or you finish in the dark. It takes a lot of setup, and usually in the winter you can't feel your hands as you've got decoys to set up, you've got your little head torch, and all whilst this you're trying to make sure you get a good spread of decoys or you're in the right spot. As you've done a bit of research, you know where the geese are flying, so you need to be ready. But it doesn't always go the way you plan, especially when you're trying to chase an animal.
They're not sure.
The geese know when there's something not right, and they have you on your toes. They fly near you, you think they're coming right into your decoys, and you've spent all that effort, but yet you still get caught short, whether you're trying to move your decoys and then they fly over and they just embarrass you. But sometimes it comes together and you get a few shots at the geese. Now this is what I really enjoy. You put all this effort in and eventually it just happens. They come in beautifully and you get a few shots, you get a couple geese down, and you get to go home knowing you've got a feed, and it's just been an amazing day or week or weeks if you've not had anything. But it doesn't get better than this, and this is another part I enjoy. You get to sit and have a crisp cold beer, and you get to prep the meat that you've just went and collected yourself. And this is where the next part of the journey starts. So let's get stuck into the cooking side of this. First of all, I'm going to make a little seasoning, that thing I said, chimichurri, and it starts with some olive oil, some red wine vinegar, and a whole load of flat leaf parsley. Just try not to chop your finger off. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chop some nice little chilies up. I like a little bit of chilliness in there, nice warm to the mouth, nothing too much, otherwise it will blow my head off. A sprinkling of some salt. I've smoked my own salt, so I'm chucking that in there and give it a good old stir. Last thing, I'm going to chuck in a whole heap of crushed garlic and give it another good mix. And the reason I've done that first is so I can let it sit and all the flavors go together. Now for the veg, I'm keeping this really simple. All I'm doing is chopping these onions in half. I'm leaving all the husk and everything on, and with the peppers I'm just going to pretty much do the same. Chop them up, take all the insides out, and just leave them like that, and I'm going to cook them whole. And well, there you have it, a nice big chunk of goose. This time I have just taken the breasts off but plucked the front, so basically I've got the nice fatty skin because that goes really nice and crispy. I'm just going to score it so when the meat cooks it curls up a lot less. I think this is what it does. I'm not a professional. And thanks to the Saltbox team, I'm using their barbecue barn blend seasoning, and I'm going to chuck that all over the goose breast. I love using these spices, and it's so much easier than making your own, especially when I don't have a lot of time. So I'm going to rub that all in there, both sides, and completely cover it. And of course, I need to chuck some nice smoked salt on there again. I really think the salt helps the skin get nice and crispy, and I just love the flavour. And I do like a bit of salt. Now, another recipe I am stealing from the Saltbox is their flatbreads, and it's pretty simple. You've got some flour, salt, and this time I'm going to chuck some of their spices in. This is one of my favourite ones, chili, fennel and orange seasoning. It goes with everything, chicken, fish, and it's my first time chucking it in bread though. So let's give it a go. Chucking that in there on the flour, and the next major ingredient is a whole load of natural yogurt. So piling that in there. I have never made this before, so this is an experiment for me too. Next things are give it a good old mix. What I do recommend is maybe mixing it with the spoon a lot longer before using your hands. Otherwise you end it with all over your fingers and it's a bit of a mess. But we got there in the end, and I've not wasted too much. So I am going to dice this up. If you look on their website, they have all these recipes, Saltbox. So I think this recipe, this makes around 8 to 12. I kind of just made the amount up, and they say around 1 centimeter thick. So that's roughly what I'm going to do. There you have it. They actually look pretty professional. So we've got all the goose, it's all ready to go, spiced up, salted up, and the spice is really getting into the meat there. The chimichurri is looking good. The longer you leave this, the better it tastes. And just again, some plain veggies, and they are going to go straight on to the barbecue. So we better get this thing lit and get it roaring. I'm no professional and you might think I'm crazy, but I am using some big lumps of charcoal and some nice beech, so I get a nice smoky flavour as well. Temperature's up, it's time to get the meat on. This time I am going skin side down first, because I really want it to get crispier and the fat will start coming out. And as soon as that happens, the fire usually goes pretty wild.
So I'm just going to cook this pretty quickly on the skin side, even though I want it longer because the fat dripping off it is getting going. I'm just going to sear it basically on the bottom shelf, and then I'm going to move it to the top shelf where it will cook a lot slower hopefully.
So the whole idea of me cooking the meat like this is I want to cook it pretty hot on the skin side and then the other side, and then I'm going to chuck it up onto the top shelf where all the veggies are, and it's going to cook a lot slower and cook in the smoke as well. Well, it's fair to say that I'm in love with making flatbreads. Watching them bubble up over the fire like that is amazing. This is definitely a recipe I'm going to take out whether I'm camping or anything, because you can chuck them on the barbecue, you can chuck them over the fire, you can chuck them on just a frying pan, and they're good fun to watch bubble away. With everything pretty much ready to go and looking delicious, it's time to take it off, and first things I'm going to do is get the onions ready. Now I've cooked them in the husk, and the whole idea is they go nice, sweet and juicy, and then the husk just gets a bit burnt, but you cut all that off. So I'm going to cut all that off, and I'm going to slice the meat up, slice the other veg up, the nice peppers there, which they also go really sweet as well. And there you have it. It does look pretty amazing. My mouth is watering doing this voiceover right now. Chucking it onto the flatbread and obviously covering it with chimichurri. And this time I'm also going to put some creme fraiche on top of that, and just get it down me basically. Well, there you have it. I don't know how it's going to taste. It looks amazing. There's only one thing for it, and that's just to go for it. And freshly caught, well, a while ago, but I do like Goose. It's basically our deer up here, so let's get tucked in. Not too burnt, which is usually how my dinners go. That's pretty good. I have chimichurri running down my elbow. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little cook up and a bit of Shetland shooting in the winter. It's how I get my meat. Basically, I try avoid buying anything from Tesco's. It's a way forward. It's all out there. You just got to go do it, and there's plenty of people like there. Salt box to help you cook, Honky Outdoor Spices, all these people I use. It's how you should do it. Go get your meat, your veg, and just chuck it all together. It's so much better. Cheers. I hope you enjoyed this little episode, guys. I really want to drive in the relation between the hunting and the cooking and the food. It's why we do it. It's why I love it, and it can taste amazing. Shout out to the Salt Box for helping with all the spices and the recipes. And yes, this was one of the worst recoveries I've ever done. It was December. I can tell you now, that was not fun.